there. Welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. We are amateur podcasters simply for entertainment. If we misquote or offend, it was not on purpose to do so. Also, we're recording from our dining rooms, kitchens, backyards, what have you. So you might hear kids, dogs, and some traffic. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Oh man, Mark, today is I can't even believe it's already our sixth episode.
Yes,
which
episode
is so
6.
freaking awesome. I can't even believe how far we've figured out how to do a podcast from the first episode. I remember being so excited just hearing my voice on a playback from after you edited the first episode, and now here we are, like big boys and doing podcasting.
And it's wild. Well, we have, what was it, 150, 200 downloads already?
We got almost about 175.
Wild.
Yeah.
That is crazy. I love it.
And now we're on a wiki page too.
Yes. Right. Yes. Wikipedia. We'll do our first shout out is of course going to be our first sponsor, which is Video Game Plus and Level Up Frozen Yogurt here in Roseburg, Oregon. They're open 7 days a week off Stevens Street. They have new flavors every month, some dairy free, and over 50 toppings, including fresh fruit.
Love fresh fruit.
You gotta love fresh fruit.
Love Video Games Plus.
They're a good place. Very good place. All right. And also too, if you guys ever have any questions or want to give us feedback, we're at the Oregon Files podcast at yahoo.com.
And we have a Facebook page recently created. You can look for it under either Eliav, ELIAV, or Oregon Files Podcast, and also a Instagram page that will be posting episodes to both of those social media sites going forward. But you also can find our episodes on all your platforms where the podcasts are published. So
Google Oregon Files podcast.
If you Google it, Google Mark Layton or Eliav Bowman, and our podcast just pops up on Google, and you can find it that way. We're on Audible and Apple. We're new to Apple, and pretty exciting that we're getting there on all the platforms and stuff. So
I love it.
I know, I'm excited.
So much fun. Today's topics, we're going to talk about kind of an interesting one here. It's about Chinese Americans in the Pacific Northwest, and one particular immigrant named China Sam that we're going to discuss his history here and go from there. And then we'll try and, talk about some other migration things and maybe end on some funny police logs.
Yay.
So, yeah, here we go. Ready? We'll jump right in.
Sure.
Early stuff here about Chinese Americans in the Pacific Northwest, just to kind of get your mindset in before we jump into China Sam, who was here in Roseburg. So the Chinese Americans have been around since the early 1850s in this area. They arrived in the greater Seattle area as early as 1851, and I know they also came up through San Francisco a lot because those were the major shipping areas, shipping ports. Oregon has seen an influx of Chinese immigrants as early as 1851 because of mining opportunities. The influx of Chinese immigrants and the rest of the western United States led to retaliation by whites, leading to anti-Chinese sentiment in the United States.
Sorry.
I know. This sentiment led to the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which expelled many Chinese Americans in the Pacific Northwest. However, the enforcement of the Exclusion Act was kind of lackluster. The United States Department of Treasury had found itself with no money to enforce this law. Well, seems like today, huh? Thus nullifying the purpose of the Exclusion Act. Additionally, under the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, Chinese people could migrate to the United States if they were return immigrants. Consequently, Chinese immigrants began claiming that they were returning immigrants so that they could work in the United States. Have you been here before? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. This led the United States government to pass a Scott Act of 1888. This excluded all Chinese immigration because it was cheaper and it appeased the racial tensions to the West. So, gotta love that.
Scott Act.
Yeah, Scott, yeah. Some guy named Scott.
Some guy named Scott.
Yep, I don't like these guys. Oh, man. I'm going to talk about a guy named China Sam. And he was kind of a fixture in Roseburg for close to 60 years. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna start with him, where he was born, that kind of stuff. And before I get there, I was going to talk about, a little bit more about the Roseburg area and Chinese immigrants, because we had a lot of them. We had, at one point, they said there was the 4-to-1 ratio, actually, of Chinese immigrants compared to white settlers. And so there was a majority thing there. And sadly,
I know that
we treated them terribly. So they treated them almost as their house pets,
right.
Sadly. Very, very
commodities.
Yes.
Right.
Terrible mistreatment. So it was really hard for them to, they couldn't own land. They couldn't, marry outside their race. But what was wild though was that a lot of people who, even though they treated him terribly, they spoke well of him. And because they said that they just knew not to speak up or complain, or they just would work harder and get the stuff done. So it was kind of a weird vibe.
Yeah. That's a little. I'm not gonna treat you good, but you're a nice guy.
Yeah, you're a nice guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tax you.
Get back to work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay you 1/4 of what
Right.
you're.
You don't mind sleeping outside again, do you?
It's just wild. It's just wild to ever treat anybody, another human being like that at all. Blows my mind. But I'm coming from a privileged upbringing. I feel.
Right.
I
do too. I mean, but I can't even fathom. And I think they had to. What options did they have?
Yeah.
They probably came over here looking for opportunity, and I mean, get treated crappy or.
Very true. Very true. It's a heavy thing. Yeah. China Sam, so we're going to start with him. China Sam was born in Canton, China. I know they were Canton,
Ohio.
Yeah. No, Canton, China.
Ohio.
Yeah. Grandfather and his father were preachers of Confucianism, the ancient Chinese religion based on ancestor worship. However, when Sam heard the Christian gospel preached by a missionary in China, he discarded the religion of his fathers and incorporated into his life the faith in the living God. When he was about 17 years old, China Sam decided to come to the United States and made a 60-day trip across the Pacific with a boatload of 500 other Chinamen. China Sam landed at Eureka, California when he was 17 years of age in 1854. From there, he went to Crescent City, California, later coming to Jacksonville. Here he cooked for American families and worked in the mines, and has a vivid remembrance of all of the old pioneers of this part of the state.
I wonder if we ever ran into our other character last week.
Ed Shefflin? I know. You almost want to wonder if there's...
Because they were right around the same time.
Yeah, I can see it happening.
Maybe he cooked for, a good
Cook
old
for Ed
Ed
Shefflin.
Chef.
I see a movie brewing. Connecting all these characters together.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Because Ed Chef had that money,
Oh, yeah. Probably gave China Sam something, just walked away. Sam mined on the Applegate at the dry diggings near Grants Pass, and later came up to the Cow Creek Canyon, where he was a member of the Chinese crew which panned and sleuthed the bed of the stream for a very long distance. While living near Jacksonville, Sam worked at the home of Mrs. Clara Birdseye, mother of one Mrs. William Colvig. I like
it's an important point. Yeah.
So just when I love when I'm doing this research, there's always the accolade of or the acknowledgement of who knows who. Okay, it's like neighbor of so and so, or like that. It's like as if you're not going to believe what they're what they're saying. Mrs. Birdseye taught Sam to speak and read English, and Sam to this day holds her memory in great reverence. I think a good deal of her, he said, but she passed away a long time ago. Sam also names the Bybes, Colvigs, Beals, Miriams, Deans, Owens, and Plymales, and other pioneer families of Southern Oregon as among those who were his friends and acquaintances.
I bet they were all lovely people.
All great people.
No Shefflin, though.
Yeah. Here's the crazy part. A lot of what we know about China Sam was captured and released in 1968 in an article by Eddie Colhagen. So one of the buildings downtown Roseburg is named after this guy.
Colhagen Apartments.
Yes, Colhagen Apartments. So this is named after his family.
Huh.
China Sam was a well-known Roseburg character for many years, held in fond remembrance by those who were acquainted with him, employed as a houseboy or servant in the Roseburg home of the Honorable Judge Binger Herman.
Man, that term.
Binger Herman, yes.
Houseboy.
Houseboy, yeah. Houseboy's not a...
Man.
You're not going to find that in today's applications.
Gosh.
Yeah. Woof.
What are you on? I'm a houseboy.
When Binger Herman's will was probated in 1926, a bequest of $200 was made to China Sam, and the local newspaper stated that China Sam had been a resident of Roseburg for more than 60 years by that time. It puts the date of his arrival in Roseburg at about 1866. His real name was Young Sam, or Young, Y-U-N-G, Sam, and he enjoyed being called that. And what I'm reading right now is actually in the words of Eddie Colhagen. So it says, my folks and others told me that the early days, Sam had some trouble with his feet, and some fools told him to put them in water, and it would help them. China Sam was good to all the trusted people. Sometime later, his legs had to be amputated at the knees.
Oh, man.
Exactly. And he used 2 short canes to go around until his death.
Oh, man.
So he lived another 30 years after that happened.
Dang, what jerks.
Yeah. So in 1892, China Sam had a small store on the south side of Cass Street, a few stores west of Jackson Street, next to where the Colhagen's father had a butcher shop at the time.
Who didn't have a butcher shop back then?
Everyone's...
It's like a nail salon now. Everyone's got a butcher shop.
Well, that's the thing. So
Everyone had a butcher shop. Yeah.
Chan and Sam told the Colliger's father that someone was stealing live chickens at night. He didn't say who because they wouldn't rat anybody out, but he said, hey, they're stealing live chickens out of the back of your butcher shop. Chan and Sam was good to kids and would always give them firecrackers, silk handkerchiefs, flags, China dolls, and other things made in China.
China Sam sounds like a good dude.
Yeah, he gave them a lot of, there's all kinds of cool stories in here. Him just like really being really sharing and that kind of stuff. Like they always joke that he should be selling this stuff more than giving it away. But he always wanted to make sure that everyone who came in the shop walked away with something, whether they could afford it or not. So one of the things he liked to give out too was China candy or Chinese nuts, which were lychee nuts, apparently. Sam did close the store. Sadly, he kind of moved around after that, finding a place to live that wasn't too costly. So in 1901, when he was 64 years old, so Sam suffered an attack, which left him a cripple, both legs below the knees, being so badly affected that they assumed his death was only regarded as a matter of time. Sam was in the hospital for 6 months, but he says he had lots of good friends who would pay all his hospital doctor's bills when he was sick. So that was kind of nice.
As they should.
As they should. It was rheumatism. He says stories that someone jokingly told him the cure for rheumatism was to soak his feet in lye water. And so he did so. He used a solution that was so strong his feet and legs became infected and had to be amputated.
China Sam should have sought some sort of retribution against them fellers.
He never named who it was. So that goes to his character and that kind of stuff. And that it's a hard one because, it's some people are saying that, someone jokingly told him and other people said it was a mean trick. So it's like, he took it to the grave, though. He wasn't going to say who told him to try it because he didn't want them to get in trouble. Because they knew, obviously, for him to believe that would work. And then, if people would say that to him, I was messed up.
He said it was a lie.
It was lye water. That's pretty good. I'll give you that one. Dr. Evie Hoofer and Major George Hueck, Army personnel, and Luther Hamilton, in an effort to save Sam's life, which everyone kind of gave up on him, undertook to amputate both of his legs just below the knee. It was the first time the operation of that nature those men took. And so,
wow.
Yeah, because it's a pretty bad deal. So it saved his life. If they didn't amputate, he probably would have.
And just wheelchairs probably weren't.
And he couldn't afford one. Sadly, he's not a rich guy. He couldn't own property. That's the thing. So he couldn't own property. He's getting taxed because he's Chinese. So he's paying up the wazoo. He doesn't have too much to give. So he had to rely a lot on the kindness of people in Roseburg. He said that Jesus Christ and the Stars and Stripes are the two best things in the world. And that was something that China Sam said.
And then he became a Cowboys fan.
This is from the News Review, March 15th, 1920.
Wow, the News Review? 1920, that's
1920. Cool. China Sam has lived in Roseburg for 53 years, has given his best to the city, and the city has been more than good to him. China Sam was 83. Penniless and crippled with no place to go. He had hundreds of photographs. They found out when they went and interviewed him, he had a box of photographs, his pictures of many of the most prominent people in Roseburg over 50 years that used to come to his store and visit him.
Man, that is so cool.
Isn't that wild? They said that actually
it's cool that he had that.
Isn't that wild? They said there's any doubt that his collection of photos is probably the biggest one in the county.
Yeah, he was like the first historian to collect.
Oh, he loved it. He loved everyone in Roseburg. He loved anyone that was. He was friends with all the mayors, that kind of stuff. Like anyone, and everyone knew who he was. So you would always see him. Included among the photos of Roseburg children who have grown up during Sam's residence here, he had Mrs. Gaddis. So we named Gaddis Park. Yep, Gaddis Park
here in Roseburg.
And then Nathan and Kate Fullerton, which is, the Fullerton schools are named after.
Huh.
The next article about China Sam is in 1928. China Sam sees an airplane for the first time in his life. So he's 91 years old. Saturday, September 10th, 1928, to view an airplane at close range. The first time he had been near a flying machine. Despite his age and the fact that he is crippled, China Sam, interested in planes, and anxious to inspect one closely.
Hopefully somebody warned him about that one.
Oh, is that wild? During his lifetime, China Sam has seen many changes in transportation. In his early life, he traveled in the conveyances of China. In the United States, he saw the ox team, the horse-drawn stagecoach, and finally the railroad. And they succeeded each other as modes of transportation. That was in 1928. 3 years later, China Sam dies at the age of 94.
Wow.
April 5th.
94.
94 years old. April 5th, 1931 in Roseburg.
We just read an article on lunch. There's a lady here in Roseburg who just turned yesterday, 106 years old.
Amazing. Curiosity keeps her going or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
They asked her, what has kept you alive this long? And she was, curious about people and how things work have kept her alive this long. Can't imagine. Even China Sam, I mean, seeing progression of, history and just civilization, going through everything, and it would be kind of crazy. I think it would be even the lady that we were talking about going from the Depression era, the Great Depression, and then like to today's world where you have smartphones, and it's just it would be so crazy.
Oh, it's just wild. Wild. Yeah, to see that much. Like, I can only imagine what it's going to be like in 50 years if I live that long.
Right.
What I'm going to see.
I remember when I was a kid, I thought by the year 2000 we were going to have flying cars.
We're all promised that. The oil companies kept that down. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah.
You
can't be able to fly.
One too many watching Back to the Future, thinking auto drying clothes and hoverboards.
We have so many crazy things that have progressed, but then I think a lot of times we get in our own way.
Yeah. I mean, society does. I mean, technology progresses as fast as we allow it. To come out in the market and stuff. And in the case of China Sam, it's really just, there's millions and millions of stories like his, throughout history, just being mistreated. And I think he really just always wanted to fit into society. And I mean, they can say they liked him all he wanted, but he obviously died alone.
Yeah.
With nothing.
Yeah.
But pictures of people that he loved.
Isn't that crazy?
That's probably what he held by his heart the whole time.
There was well-wishers and people who would bring him food and that kind of stuff. But you're right. He died penniless. That's the next part here in the interview. It says that the only thing that he wanted was a big funeral and lots of flowers. The late Emmy Ritter of the Roseburg Funeral Home took charge of the remains. When Joe Murphy and Coolhagen wanted to select a casket, Mr. Ritter showed him one that cost $300. China Sam had only $50 to his name when he died, and he wasn't even allowed to hold on to his money. So get this, going back to the local butcher, actually held it in his bank because the Chinese were not allowed to hold money into a bank, so they couldn't even hold on to their own money.
So he probably had more money to account for it, but
made sure it was a nice tombstone, which they did. Clothing merchants in Roseburg, such as Wilder Agee and Harst Toggery, which I know Toggery was, donated clothing for China Sam to be buried in. The local Masonic Lodge donated a grave lot for China Sam, the Masonic Cemetery.
Really?
And the only charge was for $7 for the digging. The only relatives China Sam had in the United States lived in Astoria, but they could not come to the funeral. They did receive a letter to be read out loud. It ended up being a large funeral, and his casket was blanketed with flowers. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's kind of bittersweet to the end there.
Yeah. So he had a big funeral. He had,
And where is he buried at, did you say?
So here's where, good question. So he was at the Masonic Cemetery. However, in 1948, so now this is 17 years after he died, his bones are dug up. A group of Chinese. The explanation was that the Chinese government sponsors the digging up of graves of deceased Chinese abroad and takes the remains home to China because the body cannot rest on foreign soil. So representatives from China were at the Masonic Cemetery and dug up the bones of young Sam, better known as China Sam. The tombstone that was on China Sam's grave is in the possession of one Harry Rapp, who was part of the Historical Society at the time.
But how'd they even decide to even just 17 years later, how are they like, oh, well, China Sam's buried there. We might as well do what's...
They did it with all of them. So get this. This is so not just with him. Here we go. Now, this is an interview in 1949. Bones of Oregon Chinese started to native land. The bones of 559 Chinese, many of them dead for 50 plus years, were started back yesterday for burial in the land of their ancestors. So it started in Portland, and they signed 93 cases holding 6 metal containers. They went to the Tung Hua Hospital in Hong Kong. From there, they will be forwarded to various cities and villages. The remains have been returned to China in sporadic shipments for many years. The remains were taken from cemeteries in Portland, Astoria, Baker, Coos Bay, Albany, Ontario, Ashland, Corvallis, Roseburg, The Dalles, and Pendleton. A place called the Nines Plot at Lone Fir Cemetery near Portland is reported to have been one of the first Chinese burial plots in North America.
That's interesting.
Yes.
I wonder if China Sam would have wanted it that way.
See, and what's funny, so get this, it's funny you bring that up too, because there was some opinion articles about it. When China Sam was dug up, there was some actually very upset Roseburgians who thought, no, he would have probably wanted to stay here because this is where he knew his friends were. He didn't know anyone in China by then. he lived here for 91 years in America, or no, sorry, for what, 60 plus years in Roseburg. They're like, no, they can't be on foreign soil. So it's an interesting thing. So
it is an interesting concept because what really constitutes who really gets to make that judgment call seems kind of silly to me.
It does. It's a very interesting, hard one. I could tell that China Sam loved Roseburg, and a lot of people did take care of him. So it's a really interesting article and really, if it wasn't for the interview with Coolhagen, we wouldn't have as much information as we have. And it was mainly because he remembered him when he was growing up as a kid, and his dad helped him take care of him too. So very interesting thing, though.
Well, cool, man.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's China Sam.
R.I.P.
All right. Now, so you got stuff on other migration, right?
I do. I found some kind of cool stuff on genealogical studies.com is where I got this. It's a National Institute for Genealogical Studies. The pioneers kind of on a high level of when they came out to Oregon and the settlement of Oregon. I know most of us as kids have played the Oregon Trail game, so I think we're all kind of familiar with the what's it called when you go across the river? It's like you have to make that choice.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember what it's called, but
I always died of dysentery.
It's not boarding. I can't remember. I'll think of it. Anyway, bound for Oregon. By acquiring Oregon, the Southwest, and California, the United States virtually doubled its territory and extended its boundaries to the Pacific. In 1841, the first large group, which were 48 wagons. Now, do you think that somebody was like, I got to lead? There was some jerk that was like, I got to be the first wagon to get there. Road rage with wagons.
Do you think they take turns being in first? Because I heard it's like long distance truckers. Like if there's 3 truckers, like they'll take turns being in the lead. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just looking at the back of someone else's wagon for what? A year?
Right. Yeah. Who had to be in the back? Oh man. Back of all that dust and the smell. So the first large group, 48 wagons, they emigrated to California, traveling over the emerging Oregon-California Trail, crossing the Humboldt River and the Sierra Nevada mountains to reach Sacramento. The next year, a party of 130 in 18 wagons. So 130 people in 18 wagons.
Okay.
That's really stuffing them full, man.
Yeah.
Headed for the Oregon Territory from Independence, Missouri, which is like the first spot you leave from in the Oregon Trail game. If you remember that.
That's right. That's right.
So they were headed for the Oregon Territory from Independence, Missouri. In 1843, 1,000 Easterners left from Independence, Missouri to settle in the Oregon Territory, marking the beginning of a huge Western migration. During the period from 1846 to 1869, about 60,000 Mormon pioneers crossed the prairies. The Mormon Trail stretched nearly 1,400 miles across prairies, sagebrush, flats, and steep mountains.
Wow.
And then he goes on to say some of the people that were traveling, the pioneers, a lot of them settled in others in Texas, settled in parts of Missouri and Southwest along the Santa Fe Trail. After leaving the rivers, they continued westward by any available transportation, but most used farm wagons. There were smaller, which could also be used over the Santa Fe Trail, but not through the rugged mountain ranges faced by pioneers migrating the overland trails to Oregon, Utah, and California. Even after the railroads came along and followed these same routes, depositing settlers along the way, wagon travelers continued to trek into the far west, moving into areas not reached yet by the railroad.
Amazing.
The 19th century began. 4 nations claimed ownership of the Oregon country. I did not know this. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Spain, Russia, England, the United States. That's so random.
I like Spain's claim. I was like,
right.
But they had a lot of shipping or a lot of boats with Spain.
I guess that makes sense. The Pacific Ocean. And Russia makes sense too because they own Alaska.
Yeah, you can see my house from here. Yeah.
Right. Right. And then England's.
England lays claim to everything.
Right.
They just, no matter what it is.
We're white settlers. We're taking over everything. I guess it makes sense because if they're all looking for ports and places to ship out. So Oregon country, Spain, Russia, England, and the United States. Missionary desire to convert the Indians brought the first Americans to the area. Wah wah. More came in order to be involved in the fur trade. In 1844, Britain sent an official to Vancouver, Washington to seek information on the relative strength of the American and British elements. His report was that there was only about 750 English compared to nearly 6,000 Americans in the Oregon County.
Wow.
The American settlements were confined almost entirely to the Willamette Valley south of the Columbia River.
Wow.
A treaty with the British in 1844 set the boundary at the 49th parallel. Oregon was made a territory in 1848, at which time the population was numbered approximately, what's your guess?
80,000. I'm way low.
9,000.
No, only 9,000. Okay.
9,000 people.
Real low.
Yeah, the Oregon Territory was divided in 1853. The northern half was given the name Washington. Oregon was admitted as a state in 1859.
Okay.
Washington's present boundaries was established also when Idaho was made a territory in 1863. It goes on to say the first immigrants to Oregon went by ship before an overland trail was established. Even after the Oregon Trail migrations began, ships continued to travel to Oregon, but they were not popular among the pioneers. Few pioneer families could afford the fare for the long journey sea to Oregon destination, and the sea journey took up to a full year versus 6 months by wagon.
Jeez Louise.
I'd probably choose wagon.
Yeah,
too.
I would have gone wagon.
Wagon's a lot more fun too.
Yeah, and you're not going to get to see.
You got the open air.
You got the open air.
You can kill stuff.
Oh,
You
it
get-
seems
you know?
easier to do.
You can go racing with your wagons.
So you saying that when Oregon became a state, it's close to about 9,000 people?
Yeah, the population in 1848 about 9,000 people.
That
It
is
was made territory,
wild.
9,000 people. Yeah.
I think there's that many people living in this neighborhood.
Right.
It's so wild.
Marcus and Narcissa Whitman, who made the trip in 1836, were the first immigrants to Oregon overland in a Coverland wagon. However, the big wave of Western migration did not start until a combination of economic and political events in the late 1830s to the early 1400s converged to start a large-scale migration west. I have more. In 1843, nearly 1,000 pioneers made a 5-month journey with 120 wagons and 5,000 cattle.
Wow.
How many think those cattle survived?
That's, that
5,000 cattle
okay,
and 120 wagons.
That's amazing that you're right, because you think about to move cattle that far across the
dude.
United States.
Oh, man. And
you're right.
people. I mean, if your cattle dies, you got food.
That's true.
You
That's
know?
true. But those cattle weren't built, well, then again, they're probably tough back then, unlike today. But those
They
cattle,
probably had like a 12-pack.
like the cattle, like, look, man, I'm not going to walk 12 miles.
Right.
But
Right.
No.
We're stopping here for the evening, right?
yeah, that's wild.
Over the next 25 years, more than 500,000 people went west on the trail. Between 1841 and 1850 alone, nearly 10,000 pioneers outfitted their wagons, secured teams, said farewell to friends and family, and in April and May gathered at jumping-off points along the Mississippi River frontier to set out to the Oregon Trail. Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, and Utah would probably not be part of the United States today if it were not for the Oregon Trail.
That's wild.
Not for the Oregon Trail, because it was the only feasible way for settlers to get across the mountains. The entire route of this trail was determined by the location of an easy pass through the Rocky Mountains, which became known as the South Pass. I mean, they couldn't think of a better name for an easy pass. That's the South Pass. That's
so wild.
I mean, we're tired enough to do things. The Oregon Trail ran west from the Missouri towards the Rocky Mountains to the Willamette Valley, which is near Eugene, Oregon. Generally through the Platte River to its trail, connecting Council Bluffs to Salt Lake City. The Oregon Trail followed the Snake River until it reached the Columbia River, which flowed into the Pacific.
Yep.
Those who went to Oregon found it to be an incredibly difficult journey because of approximately 2,000 miles, and there were many who walked the entire way.
Yes, that's wild. Yeah, because you're
That
right,
is dedication.
There was not much room in the
2,000
thing.
miles walking?
Yeah, if the cows could do it,
I'm riding a cow. I don't. That is insane.
Did you hear about there was a
2,000 miles?
It was it mongooses or something? There was
They walked about 2,000 miles, and there were many who walked the entire way. 1 in 10 died. That is not
1 in 10.
That's not the greatest odds. There,
Oh man.
Occasionally at the hand of Indians, but more often due to poor sanitation and disease, especially that cholera. This is the accidental gunshots took their toll also.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
There's certain things you
Accident.
Can,
I mean, I can kind of. Cholera is like I understand the cholera, but then I love how the accident took their toll.
that's such an American thing. You know, that's someone that's like, hey, wait a minute, I have a right to own guns. I have a right to have a loaded gun. And then now there's a statistic how many have died to accidental gunshots.
Yeah, just
a little trigger happy there.
Little careless there, shooting the old vultures.
That's amazing.
Over the next 30 years, military posts, trading posts, shortcuts, and spur roads sprang off the Oregon Trail. And then the railroad reached the far west. The Central Pacific Railroad connected California to the rest of the continent in 1869. The Oregon Short Line finished a railroad in 1884 from Portland, Oregon to the Union Pacific Railroad in Wyoming. Wagon trains gave way to modern transportation, and the trail became a route for eastward cattle drives. What? Speaking about
accidental gunshots.
That's
my neighborhood.
Oh my gosh. Now, the Oregon Trail is considered part of a historic and picturesque past of covered wagons and heroic pioneers.
Wild. It's just the audacity of it.
And if you found that interesting, then you belong listening to us because
super fascinating.
No, I love that stuff. Yeah, I think we should do more definitely down the road. More on the
Oregon Trail down the road.
Yeah. And the people that traveled it. I mean, there has to be so many stories about legendary families, and like, you know, there's got to be.
Oh yeah, like whose descendants from there?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right. Who settled where? You know, from the set off point. You know, and then you know, in the different cities that they decided to set up. And
I love when you said that one of the places they settled from, they left Independence, Missouri.
Yeah.
But when you said where people settled, some of them settled in Missouri. Like those are the ones like after a couple days, they're like,
Mississippi.
It
was close enough.
Okay.
Or even like Texas. It's like, boy, Oregon sounds nice.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Sounds great.
Okay. Talk me into it.
Yeah.
How long do I got to walk there?
Yeah, exactly.
2,000?
They get
1 in 10 and accidental gunshots?
Yeah, that's and there's Indians? Yeah. I'm out.
Ew.
Look, my cows are tired. Yeah. I'm tired. I'm going to settle right
here.
here.
I heard there's good grazing in Santa Fe. That's where I'm going to go.
It's amazing. But yes, more to do on the Oregon Trail for sure.
Yeah.
I've heard some crazy
and Applegate,
stories.
right?
Yes, Applegate, yes.
Because the Applegate was... Now, I don't know a ton about the Applegate Trail, but I feel like it was the same kind of thing, right? It was the migrating of pioneers, right? Settling in this area.
Once again, it's just a bunch of white people who named the trail after themselves.
Right.
Laid claim to this land, and God's, because God wanted them to have it. Doesn't matter if someone's living there already.
Right there.
Yeah. In about 2 episodes, we'll do a good Applegate story.
But,
no, there's a spoiler on Applegate.
Yeah. What's the word? Teaser.
Yes,
I was thinking
teaser. Yes.
Teaser for next episode.
Yes.
Couple episodes down.
Yep. Yeah. Next one we'll do a more spooky Halloween episode, maybe.
Yes.
And then we'll give a good Thanksgiving one with crazy Indian murder involving Applegate.
Yes. Speaking of Halloween, I love fall. Do you have a favorite season?
Oh, fall. Okay, get this. When I was a kid, it was summer. Okay.
Yeah.
But then I started working and I had a job during summer. So summer wasn't, and then winter was Christmas. But then when you have to, have a job and buy presents, winter's Christmas now. So fall, fall's one of those ones you can enjoy. You can go for walks. It's got football. The weather changes.
You don't have to do outside work.
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty about laying and watching football.
Yep.
The seasonal beer changes in the stores, which I love. Crank up the crock pot and find some good, crock pot soup and chili recipes. It's kind of what we do.
It's the best. You can go to bed early because it gets darker out.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm a big fall fan.
Right around now too, it's perfect weather.
Oh,
mid, early October, going into November. It's perfect here in Oregon.
And every time they say, "Oh, there's a project. Oh, you got to do some yard work." Oh, sorry, it's raining. Sorry.
Geez.
Yeah, sorry.
Let me look at the weather forecast.
I'm out. Right. I think we'll end on some. Yeah,
I can't find them anymore.
You can't find the police logs of Douglas County.
The funny ones.
The funny ones.
Yeah.
They do
the ones that matter.
Yeah. So I saved. We'll just do a couple of these and discuss because I like the ones that are mysterious. I like the funny ones. Or there's just not enough information in the police logs. Okay, so these are all taken from the news review. All from police logs. Oh, and by the way, we do want to shout out to the Douglas County History Museum. They allow us to use their library to research this stuff. So everything I got in China Sam was because it was archived and saved by the Douglas County Museum.
Check it out. If you haven't been there.
Great place. Great place.
If you're in town. If you need something to do when you're in town in Roseburg or passing through Oregon, and you need to kill a few hours, the Douglas County Historical Preservation Museum. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. All right, here we go. So this is in the news review. This is the first one we're going to, on the police logs. 10:11 a.m. Someone talked the caller into buying fool's gold in the 100 block of Chief Mawata Lane in Canyonville. So I love that they called the police.
Yeah, you have to call the police.
You got to call the police.
Because, there's, it sounds like it's going to be some sort of like pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Fool's gold.
That sounds like something that could have been an Ed Shefflin thing. That in the last 100 years, that fits any time.
Yes.
But yeah, someone talked to caller into buying fool's gold. I love it.
They bought it.
Yeah,
felt
they
guilty
bought it.
about it.
Yep. Yes.
And now I'm calling the police.
Yeah.
Because I'm an idiot.
And it was in Canyonville. Okay. and it's
right. Yeah. Well,
there's nothing like a big shop in Canyonville.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's a hard one. I love that story. This next one here is a two-parter. Okay.
okay.
So this is the best part about this one. I'm going to read the first part and I'll read the second part. First part, 7:57 p.m. Someone put a hit out on the caller in the 600 block of Williams Road in Yoncalla. So this guy calls in to the emergency line, says someone put a hit on them. Okay. That's at 7:57, 9:07 p.m.
Oh.
Unintended death in Yoncalla.
Oh,
Okay. Now here's the best part. They may not be related.
No, they're related. They're related. There's literally 20 people in Yoncalla.
Yes, exactly. So less than an hour later, someone says, "Hey, someone's dead. Come get the body." So it's an unintended death, but somebody called in.
That just adds up too much.
There's a story, and I love that. And that's our paper. Just like there's no story here.
Yeah, John Wick came to town.
That it's just so wild. Yeah, it's an hour and 10 minutes later.
Right.
There's an
The
unintended
boogeyman, Baba Yago.
9:38 a.m. A man with no shirt and a shovel is digging randomly around the church in an aggressive manner.
Okay, I apologize about that. I told them. No, I'm just kidding.
I like the aggressive manner.
Well, how else are you gonna dig? You
How else
can't
you
dig
Yeah,
slow.
if you got a shirt off and you're in
Right.
a church parking lot, you're
digging
aggressive.
aggressively.
Yeah, it's a digging randomly and aggressive. I love it.
You got to be looking for somebody's loved one, jewelry.
5:58 p.m. Caller's neighbor recently started getting upset about his pig in the 100 block of Sonia Creek, Myrtle Creek.
Well, that's logical. I mean, you don't want to be hogtied over sounds. You know?
Yeah. That's how many pig jokes, how many references can we make here? That's amazing.
Yeah,
I just want more to the story on that one. He goes, "Don't call the emergency services."
Right.
But you're getting upset about your pig. So it's your pig. It's your problem.
Maybe it was a neighbor and.
It's amazing. 11:03 p.m. Woman walking down the road talking in a weird language in the 400 block of Stella Street, Roseburg. So
like
that's
pig Latin.
Maybe
it's the same person.
It's the same one. Yeah. How do you define weird?
Or maybe
language?
the guy was a pig and he was like, "I need more information."
Yeah, that one's pretty good too. We'll go. Oh, I have another gold one. Here's another gold-related police log. 3:12 p.m. Boyfriend who isn't allowed at Seven Feathers, comma. So here we go. We're starting off. There's already a story.
Right.
Okay.
Boyfriend
who isn't allowed at Seven Feathers and is known as the Emperor because of how much gold he has, went missing after going hiking with friends in the Days Creek area.
What in the world?
There's so much, and that's
Boyfriend who's known as the Emperor.
Yes.
He dubbed himself the Emperor.
Yeah.
And he got his groove back.
But he went
Or his
missing after
clothes?
going hiking with friends. You don't need to bring up the stuff about, the gold. You don't need to bring up the stuff about not being allowed at Seven Feathers.
Right.
Okay.
He went missing.
It's just such an
They stole his
odd.
gold. Maybe he really was. The
Yeah.
Emperor of Gold.
That's just it. If he's missing, I don't think it's his friends that he was hiking with at that moment.
That's a good point.
And if you're known as the Emperor, like, hey, let's bring, who should take on a hike? The Emperor. He's got all that gold.
The Emperor.
Jeez. We got a follow up on the pig one. 11:39 a.m. Callers attempting to load a pig in the 1900 block of Southside Road, Sutherland. So someone was. Once again, I just need a little bit more information.
Yeah, I don't really. Who's calling? Is it just squealing a lot?
There's so many questions.
Just go to bed.
Just leave it alone.
Put on the fan or the TV.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Oh, here we go. 8:09 a.m. This is the next morning. You ready for this? 40-pound pig reported missing. Reported missing from Upper Cleveland Rapids Road in Roseburg. Last seen on Westwood.
Why is there so many?
I love it. First one guy is upset, then there's a problem with loading it, and then he just goes missing.
Why?
I love the last scene on Westwood, as if he was going
It's
around,
running away,
doing an
running
investigation. Where
Why
is
do
my
we have
pig?
so many pig callers?
4:43 p.m. Boats were dropped off at a blind man's house, and he thinks they might be stolen in the 100 block of Hogan Creek Road in Azalea.
Okay, I mean, how is he gonna know that?
Okay, that's why I stayed individual. Did he go outside?
How does he
And
gonna
he's
know
feeling with his hands, and he feels a boat and goes, "This is stolen." I didn't have a boat before.
No, this feels like a stolen boat to me.
Yeah, because he can't ID a witness. Or he can't ID somebody. He can't. There's
That's
so
a
many
lot of
questions.
whole crap.
There's a lot of It's it's a washed up story.
Right.
That one's pretty good.
Those are good.
Those are good. So yeah, we'll win on that one because I don't think, I mean, honestly,
That doesn't get any better.
it doesn't. We'll bring some more next time because there's. But anyways, yeah, that's it. Once again, Oregon Files podcast at is it yahoo.com or
Yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com.
Yes. And check us out anywhere where you get your podcast. Facebook, Oregon Files podcast. Instagram, Oregon Files podcast. And yeah, happy fall. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks.